sisters, and here we say, hey, hey, cheers.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Smoke Show with Dark Guy and Drury. I'm Jason Maslico, better known these days as Dark Guy. My co-host, Ryan Drury. How you doing today, bud?
I'm doing all right, man. Despite another tough day for the broadcasting industry, I'm trying to keep my spirits up. But sports are great right now. What a great Super Bowl we watched, and I'm just trying to focus more on that right now, to be honest. It was a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we normally like to start the show off with a bang and be all positive and happy. And, of course, Leafs are absolutely destroying the North Division. So there's a lot to be happy about. But, like you made note of, I want to get it out of the way right away. I don't want to wait for it, knowing that it's coming. We're going to talk about it. We might as well get it right away. A whole bunch of really good journalists, broadcasters, sports media people lost their jobs today in what was another sweeping layoff by Bell Media. Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Hamilton, respectively, lost their TSN sports networks. I'm just a little bit at a loss for words for this. I've kind of gone over how I wanted to approach this since I heard the news today. And I'm just so absolutely disgusted in Bell Media and the way this is being handled, the way they're going about it. January 28th is Bell Let's Talk Day. Let's talk about mental health. Let's raise awareness for mental health. February 9th, you shut down 3 radio stations with no notice. Employees walk into their job thinking they're going to have a great day and are given 30 minutes to gather their belongings, exit the premises, and basically screw off. No warning, no respect shown to the employees. You explained something to me, Ryan, and I know you got a lot of opinions on this because you're in the industry still. You're working for CKNX Radio. $889 million the Bell parent company, Bell Canada, profited in the fourth quarter of 2020. Let me repeat that. $889 million profit in one quarter. That was their quarterly reporting for the fourth quarter of 2020. That was up from $672 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. Bell took a $122 million subsidy from the Canadian government, and 3 radio stations are shut down. This is nothing but pure greed. This is nothing but pure lining the pockets of those that are on top, the shareholders, the multi-millionaires. Don't ever talk to me about Bell Let's Talk again. Don't ever expect to see a Bell Let's Talk tweet from Dark Guy. I will support mental health initiatives until, excuse the pun, but I'm blue in the face. But I can do that without doing it for Bell Let's Talk. I am absolutely disgusted that they could run this Bell Let's Talk campaign and 2 weeks later cause their employees some of the most mental anguish that they may ever experience in their life by putting them out of work in the middle of a pandemic and then say, we care about mental health. I'm not having it. I'm absolutely disgusted. As a former employee of a Bell Media Corporation, I am proud today to say that I am no longer with TSN 1050 because after what I saw today, I might have walked on my own.
Yeah, Jason, it's hard for me to kind of streamline and rationalize my thoughts right now. And that probably sounds a little stupid to some of our viewers and listeners, because I still have a job, thank God. And you mentioned, you know, my time that I've worked at CKNX for Blackburn Radio has been amazing. They're a small radio station in comparison to something like Bell, but I've always been treated fairly and made to feel, especially from my bosses and my direct superiors, that that I matter and that my work is appreciated. This really sucks, man. And you know, I don't want anybody listening to me right now to think that I'm making this about me at all, because I'm not. This is about a lot of quality people that bleed for this industry and have been cut down mercilessly today. Really by what you said, which is just incredible greed. It's unfortunately an endemic thing that unfortunately affects probably most industries in our world. People are greedy, and I think it's the worst trait you can have as a human being. And it has caused an awful lot of pain the last week and a half here. It all started last week, of course. You know, that a lot of quality people lost their jobs across TSN and Bell Media, including news talk stations as well.
Yep.
A lot of journalists losing their jobs, a ton of people that you don't know about that are behind the scenes. Guys like producer Tim at TSN is gone. Dan O'Toole is gone. I mean, I feel bad for Jay Onright. I mean, I don't know if everybody saw his video he put up at the end of SportsCenter the other night. He could barely talk.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people that are working for the company still, right? Because, you know, they don't know how to handle this. And also they're not going to say anything, you know, for fear of
being next,
when it doesn't really matter, because they'll probably be next anyway.
But that's it. How does everybody at TSN 1050, one of the stations that did stay, and obviously they're looking at their numbers, have the highest listenership out of all the TSN radio stations.
Yeah.
But how do you walk into the station tomorrow to do your show and be in a positive, happy mood? Like, I get it. I get the world. Sometimes you need to make cuts. You need to make tough decisions. I get it. But don't turn an $889 million
the industry is in such flux right now, and I don't have any good explanation for it other than people are greedy. There are people at the very top of these companies that have a monopoly on a lot of properties, and I'm not a business expert. I don't work for BBN, which, by the way, also got gutted today. Yeah. BBN Business News. I'm not an accountant, but I just feel like people in my industry are treated like meat. We're treated a lot of the time by, certainly at the very top of big companies, as very expendable. And it's unfortunate. I understand, and I understood when I went to college to pursue this dream of being a broadcaster, that it's a pretty fickle industry. It's not easy to find quality work. It's hard to get to the top. But I sit here and I found myself today, as I learned that, you know, some friends of mine were unfortunately part of the layoff in Vancouver. I sit here and I kind of wonder to myself, what was the point of all those dreams I had, because, you know, as a kid, this is all I ever wanted to do, was be a sports broadcaster. I didn't want to be a fireman. I didn't want to be a police officer. I didn't want to be an athlete. I just wanted to be a broadcaster. I thought it looked like a fun job. I've always been a talkative guy. People told me all throughout my life as a kid, you'd be great on the radio. And now I'm like, what for though? Because now when you see things like this happen in markets like Vancouver and Winnipeg and Hamilton, with rich sports history and rich sports tradition and rich sports fans that appreciate and like this content, the thought crosses your mind of, even if I was to be able to achieve my dream someday and get to the top level, whatever that is, of the sports broadcasting industry, will it matter? Because I might lose my job in 2 years or something, because some rich pig needs another boat.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry to like get a little animated here, but that's how I feel. And I didn't even lose my job today. I can't imagine. I don't even know what to say to a couple of my friends in Vancouver. What do you say on a day like this, where like you pour your sweat and time and passion into this industry? And like you said, business is a funny thing in any facet. We see it in sports. Guys get cut. People lose their jobs. It happens. But it's one thing to do that on top of all the earnings that they had at Bell, particularly because they're in the crosshairs right now and they deserve to be.
Yeah.
And I say this at the risk of potentially someone there seeing this and not wanting to hire me someday because of this opinion. It's despicable what they did today. It's not fair, and it looks horrible. They're a publicly traded company. The numbers are available. Everyone's seen them. The $122 million that they took for wage subsidy. The government of Canada should ask for that back. That $122 million that they gave to shareholders.
Yeah.
They should ask for that back. I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand the legality around things like that. In my opinion, that's fraud.
How do you have 889 million in profit in the fourth quarter and qualify for $122 million subsidy for the government? Like, not to spin this a little bit or take any attention away from Bell, but that's a whole other problem in itself. How do you get $122 million subsidy when your profit is north of 500 million, north of 600 million, north of 700 million? Why did they need $122 million in wage subsidies? Why?
I don't know.
It's all, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. It's all red tape. It's all behind the scenes. And it's like you said, some rich a-hole needed another mansion, needed another boat, needed another Maserati, whatever the case may be. And they found a loophole that was available to them as a corporation right now to get more money. It was greed. It was profit. I'm absolutely disgusted. I met so many great people at TSN 1050 when I worked there. Some of them, the layoffs and cuts started happening long before today, long before last week.
Yeah.
Some great people who were pioneers in the industry with tons of experience and credentials lost their jobs while I was there. And they did it a little bit quietly, where it was one or two at a time here, one or two at a time there.
Yeah, I remember.
So it wasn't so public. And now to do this, listen, I could just yell and be upset for the next hour and 20 minutes of the show, but I don't want to make it about that.
Yeah, I'll just leave it by saying this. I don't agree with this. This industry is broken. This industry, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but this industry is broken. And It's go ahead. Sorry.
My last two words on it, Bell Canada Enterprise, I think BCE is what it stands for.
Whatever.
Don't you dare think of doing Bell Let's Talk next year.
They can't.
Don't even friggin' think about it until the day you are willing to put your employees' mental well-being ahead of your $889 million profits. People could have kept their jobs today, and you guys might have made $650 million next year instead.
Yeah.
Don't even dare do Bell Let's Talk Day. It's over. It's finished. You guys don't care about mental health. You proved that in the last 2 weeks. That's it. I'm done. Let's talk about the Leafs. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Tom Brady.
Yeah, let's talk about the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, it was interesting. It was fun to watch it. I mean, I always enjoy the Super Bowl, even the bad ones. Was it the best Super Bowl ever? Of course not. I wouldn't even put it in the top 10 of Super Bowls I've ever watched in my lifetime. Yeah. It was pretty tough to watch Pat Mahomes running for his life all night long. That said, though, like if you're a fan of defensive football, that looked like the Buccaneers in 2002. Like they were flying all over the place. You said it going in. Don't bet against Tom Brady, but that defense was unbelievable. There wasn't any guy on the defense that stood out enough to individually win the MVP. If you could give the MVP to a group, though, it would be the defense. Like Tommy played really well. He played well. He didn't have explosive stats. He threw 3 touchdowns. What do you have, 193 yards? He just played a classic Tom Brady playoff game. Measured, never put them in danger of turning the ball over, made concise throws, and when the opportunity presented itself, he opened up the field and hit Gronk for a couple great throws. I'm happy. I'm a Patriots fan. I know people probably are booing at their screen right now or their radio or their phone. I love the Patriots. I, of course, love Tom Brady. Such a big factor in my love of sport. I'm so happy for him. I'm happy that people can stop, at least reasonable people can stop saying he only won because of Belichick. He only won because of the Patriots defense. He only won because the refs. And we can talk about the refs in a minute because people are trying to spin that like, oh, Tom only won because of the refs. That's a load of BS. Kansas City was so sloppy. They were completely undisciplined other than 2 of the calls. Yeah. The other ones were all absolute no doubt penalties. And I want everyone to just stop trying to push Peyton Manning into this conversation. I want you to stop pushing Joe Montana, with all due respect to Joe, into this conversation. Terry Bradshaw, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, Aikman, any of them.
Yeah.
If you can't admit, begrudgingly as you may have to, that Tom Brady is, I will not say the greatest athlete in North American pro sports history. Tom Brady would tell you himself, he's not very athletic. Yeah. Look back to those combine photos. Like, this guy's not very athletic. What he is the greatest, smartest, and most efficient quarterback, maybe football player overall ever in the history of that sport. And if you cannot sit there and even begrudgingly admit that he is the greatest, I will quote Mr. Ball here. You are a hater.
Yes.
And you need to get out of my sports conversation. I can't even take it seriously now anymore. Well, if people say he's not the greatest, I cannot take you seriously. I'm sorry.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, for me, being a Bills fan my entire life, I never truly appreciated Tom Brady just because he was I get it. He was a Bills killer. Every year going into the season, it was, can we get second place in the AFC East? Because we knew we weren't getting first. Tom Brady was going to will carry, whatever the case may be, that Patriots team to the division crown year after year. So I never got to truly take a step back and appreciate what I was witnessing. And when you say begrudgingly, that's exactly what I personally did the other night after the Super Bowl, was take that step back. And I kind of did a little more so throughout the year, obviously with Tom being in Tampa and not New England. But the bottom line is I am a sports fan, a football fan, a hockey fan, a baseball fan. Before I'm a Bills fan, a Leafs fan, a Jays fan. I appreciate sports.
Yep.
Sports make me happy. Sports have been, the center of every real dream I've ever had in life. Being able to witness Tom Brady's career is something that you need to, one way or another, and if it's begrudgingly, so be it, appreciate. Would I have loved to have watched Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth's career? Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Would I have loved to have watched, Gordie Howe's career in its entirety instead of only remembering, the last couple years when obviously he was, a shell of his former self? Yeah. There are going to be people generations from now who are going to be saying, man, I wish I could have been alive to watch Tom Brady. We got to witness it. Deflategate, whatever you think. Obviously, I was one of the ones at the time who pushed the cheating the cheating hyperbole, and he's a cheater. It is what it is. Nothing was ever really proven. He wasn't a cheater.
Can I address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, of course, salty fans that hate him were just like, oh, but remember, he's a cheater. Let's go through the lexicon. People saying, oh, he's the luckiest quarterback ever. He has no skill. Yeah. Watch the highlight reels. Yeah, was his offensive abilities and set up a little bit more, formative and reduced in New England in the early years? Yes, he didn't have any weapons. As soon as he got people that were capable of actually making big plays, Randy Moss, I don't know if you remember that, they broke the touchdown record at the time for quarterbacks and for wide receivers. It's still a record. What did Randy catch that year? 23? And Gronk, don't even talk to me about, he's the greatest tight end of all time, and he showed up again in the Super Bowl. Certainly, if you don't want to call him the greatest and you want to tell me about Tony, fine, but he's the most clutch tight end of all time. So don't talk to me about how Tom was simple and he only made 10-yard outs and then people bring up the tuck rule. Yeah, he was a little lucky. But if you want to whine and complain, I'm sorry, Oakland fans. I'm really sorry because you don't even exist anymore. You're Vegas fans now, maybe, or ironically wearing an Oakland A's hat. If you want to talk and complain about the tuck rule, complain to the league. It was a rule. It was a stupid rule, but it was a rule. And then he went on, and what did he do after that? Oh, he just beat the greatest show on turf. So don't talk to me about that. If you want to talk about Deflategate, that was a made-up, bogus BS whiners rant by a man named Jim Irsay, who's one of the most despicable human beings on planet Earth. Can you control your drink yet, Jim? Huh? That guy. We're going to listen to that guy rip down one of the greatest athletes of all time? Yeah, I'll go there. I'll kick him when he's down. This is also a guy who directed his football staff to tank on purpose to draft Andrew Luck. And fine, if you're okay with that, okay, fine. The Edmonton Oilers do it every other year. But then and you know where it started? This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. It started in the divisional round against Baltimore because they ran a play. Bill Belichick, you can catch video of this. Bill Belichick ran a play that he saw a college team use where they lined up the offensive line in a weird position, and they got a first down out of it. And Jim Harbaugh is the coach in Baltimore. It's Jim, right? Not his brother. It's Jim, I think. One of the Harbaughs thought it was an illegal play and complained about it, and Brady walked by him on the sideline and said, "Learn the rules." Well, he got all pissed off and called the Colts and claimed that they had found slightly deflated footballs. Then when the Colts got their ass kicked in that AFC Championship, what was the score again, Ryan? I forget. 45-7 when they got annihilated. They went, they were using illegal footballs. Here's why that argument, if you're a Tom Brady hater, has no water for me. Let's assume it's true. Let's assume he did do it, and he told the trainers to deflate the footballs to whatever, 11.3 ounces or whatever. Even if that's true, it is so marginally going to make the ball slightly easier to catch. It doesn't make it easier to throw. It will make it slightly easier to catch because there's less bounce in the ball, which doesn't matter because every wide receiver, and I'll argue anybody who says they don't, wears stick-'em gloves. So it really doesn't matter. And let's assume it's also true still. Let's assume he did do this. The NFL is responsible for taking all of the team's game balls 2 hours prior to kickoff. Every team shows up, I believe, with 15 balls. Believe it or not, the teams don't use the same footballs. One team has one set of footballs that they use on offense. The other team has another set. 2 hours before kickoff, you have to turn your balls over to the league officials that are reffing the game. They check the balls for air pressure. So if you're insinuating that Tom Brady cheated and took air out of these footballs, you're also insinuating that Roger Goodell and the league knew about it and let it happen anyway. Why would that make sense when Roger Goodell hates the Patriots and suspended Tom Brady? How does that make sense to you? And let's not forget my final point. They discovered that one of the footballs was slightly underinflated when a linebacker intercepted a pass that game. Then they took all the Patriots footballs at halftime and they filled them all to league minimum standard. They gave those balls back to the Patriots and they kicked the Colts' ass worse in the second half of that game. So if you are going to sit here and I admit I'm the biggest Brady fanboy that is, but if you're going to sit here and tell me about how Deflategate and he only won a Super Bowl because of underinflated footballs, you are the biggest hater of all time, and you're the type of person that's on YouTube at 6 a.m. going down conspiracy theory rabbit hole. You're a flat earther. You think the moon landing didn't happen. I have no time for you, and I just don't understand people who are like that. It didn't happen, and even if it did, it didn't even make a big impact on the game. And the last thing I'll say about it is, remember when Kurt Warner was on a talk show and Drew Brees, I think, was on Conan and they were joking about it can you feel the difference in the ball? Kurt Warner was on NFL Network and he's all salty because Tom beat him in the Super Bowl in his first win. Kurt Warner actually said that Tom Brady should be ashamed of himself for knowingly, what was the word he used? Altering the objective play. Kurt Warner said that. He's a Hall of Famer. And he said that on NFL Network. How big of a tool is Kurt Warner for saying something so dumb? I also want to point out that quarterbacks have been doing this for years. And also, remember a few years ago when the LA Chargers, when they were still in LA, they got caught because Phillip Rivers and the staff were rubbing turpentine on their footballs. They got fined $250,000 for that. Look it up. It happened. I'm not sure if it was turpentine, but they were rubbing a substance to make the balls stickier. Pine tar, whatever. You want to talk about pine tar in baseball? Geez, we could have a cheating, whole scandal talk about that. Deflategate is the stupidest non-story in North American pro sports history. And if you're still clinging to the words of drunk Jim Irsay, and that's your basis for hating Tom Brady,
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
First thing I want to say here, Ryan, is next
I apologize.
Next topic, don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel next time.
My apologies. I can't stand it when people do this.
It seemed like you were holding back a little bit there. I don't want you to hold back.
I was.
This is the smoke show. We bring the heat.
That's what we do, buddy. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Super Bowl.
Long story short, listen, Tom Brady has more Super Bowl rings than any franchise has won Super Bowls.
So hilarious. Like,
bottom line, he's the greatest ever. Tampa. What you can think what you want about Tom Brady, everything you touched on already. Whether it was people want to say he was a cheater, whether it was Belichick, Tampa was reeling at the start of the year. They weren't doing all that great.
No,
Tom came in, sat down with the coaching staff, and said, "Hey, this is what we should be doing. This is what I want to do." And all of a sudden, Tampa started winning. So, the guy's got the most Super Bowls in NFL history. He clearly knows and understands the game better than most coaches because he took that team and turned them around when the coaches couldn't figure out how to coach a very talented team with Brady at QB and Gronk at their disposal. They had Gronk as a blocking machine. Like, I get it. Yeah. He was a little bit older, but you didn't bring Gronk in to be strictly a blocking tight end. Like Tom Brady changed that, partway through the season. And there's not enough you can say about the guy. His resume speaks for itself. My biggest surprise, I guess, out of the Super Bowl was, like we said, how well Tampa Bay's defense did. If anybody tells me that they had Patrick Mahomes not throwing a single TD, I'm calling you a liar.
It was crazy. It's the lowest point total by Kansas City in the Patrick Mahomes era, only 9 points. They got beat by 3 possessions. Like, they lost by 22 points, which I'm pretty sure is also the biggest loss margin in Patrick Mahomes' quarterbacking history. I'm pretty sure he never lost by that type of margin, even in college. No. So this is a wake-up call for him. It's not a disaster in Kansas City. They're so good. They'll win at least one more Super Bowl with him under center, at least. And, I love the kid. I think he's going to be incredible. The team is still going to be great to watch. And just off your point about Tom readjusting the offense and everything, I don't want that to take away from the job Byron Leftwich did, a former quarterback who had some good years with the Jaguars, which is almost a ridiculous sentence to say, who has good years with the Jaguars. Oh, a guy named Leonard Fournette, who they brought in and still got a bunch of gas out of. Yeah. But Tom sat down with them during that bye week after they won 8 straight and just suggested some tweaks to the offense where they could better utilize how he likes to command the field with the way they were setting up certain plays. I don't want it to take anything away. And they jokingly said it, and Bruce Arians said it after the NFC Championship game. Well, we're basically letting our quarterback coach the offense. That's not totally true. I think Byron Leftwich is a head coach in the making. Bruce Arians, I'm really, really happy for that guy. He just seems like a great dude, a fun guy to be around, a football lifer. It was great to see him with his mom after the game. That was so cool. And he had and I want to say this as well. And, this is important in today's society, I think. And it's something that should be celebrated. Bruce Arians had an extremely diverse coaching staff. He had a number of African-American guys on the staff in very high-ranking positions, including a guy like Byron Leftwich, and 2 female coaches on the team as well. Yeah. It's the first time ever in Super Bowl history that a female coach has been let alone 2 of them, a major factor on that coaching staff. I think that's really awesome. I'm happy for Tampa. I'm mostly happy for Tom, despite everybody else I just listed off there. They played a surgical game offensively. Yeah. It was so impressive. I don't know if you want to address this whole issue that people had with the refs. Was it did it feel a little one-sided? Yes. But I challenge you to find me plays that are that blatantly obvious that Tampa was committing. They were just straight up more disciplined. And the two I had a problem with was the Mike Evans one, where Mike Evans, let's just be honest, dove and drew a flag. That was a terrible call. But if you're going to tell me that Kansas City lost because the refs were against them, which, by the way, one of their players did after the game, and his teammate was like, no.
Yeah, shut it down.
He was like, we got our ass beat, or whatever it was he said.
Yeah.
He was like, that's not true. And it wasn't. Kansas City had ample opportunity to get things going. They were awful on third downs. Yeah. Heading into the fourth quarter, Patrick Mahomes was 0 for 7 on third down. And I love the guy. I'll draft him again in fantasy next year. Travis Kelce had his worst professional football game I've ever seen him play. He dropped 3 critical plays, on one on second and 2 on third down that would have extended drives. Kansas City lost this game because the Bucs got through that patchwork offensive line and they did not execute at all and get any big plays from their big guys, and that's why they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it on social media throughout the game. Yeah, were the calls a little one-sided? Sure. But in the end, like you said, Kansas City was not doing themselves any favors. There was a lot of horrible bonehead penalties that they were taking. It was just they didn't do themselves any favors. And real quickly before we wrap it up, I want to highlight perhaps one of the most ice cold takes of the Super Bowl.
Oh, let's hear. Oh, I love it. Great. I'm excited.
This one, I got it. I left a simple comment to the gentleman and said, "Here's the attention you ordered." And it's a little kitten tugging on a shirt.
I saw this. Yes.
Mr. Ian Kenyon from the Bleacher Report says, and I quote, "Mahomes has unquestionably outplayed Tom Brady, but Tom Brady will win. Don't let the history books tell you a different story."
Yeah.
Ian Kenyon, that has to be the absolute worst attempt at a troll job for clicks and the worst Twitter bait I've seen in a long time, or you should stop watching football. If you watch that game and truly believe that Mahomes outplayed Tom Brady, now, yeah. I get it. Mahomes had to scramble a lot, and he made some absolutely ridiculous plays. Everybody's seen the picture of him parallel to the ground, throwing a Hail Mary shot.
That was insane.
But if that's what you classify as outplaying, I'm going to go with the guy who actually threw a couple touchdowns, not Patrick Mahomes, who, for as great as of a career he's going to have, couldn't get it done. And that's not on him, but
not totally.
Be honest here. Mahomes did not outplay Tom Brady. And if you believe that, it's time to shut her down. Look at a different career choice, because that's horrible.
Yeah, if you think that just based simply on that insane sidearm throw he made while falling down, which was unbelievable. Yeah, I'm sorry. You still have to make the plays, and it's a team sport. I don't think it's all on Patrick Mahomes. His offensive line was terrible.
Like you said, there was a lot of drops in key moments that could have been momentum changers, game changers.
Oh,
absolutely.
I'm not just trying to pick on the great Travis Kelce, who again I love. Mecole Hardman had a couple drops as well. Like, you pick at all these little things. They didn't lose because of the refs. I know the pivotal one that everyone was complaining about was the offside on the field goal that ended up resulting in a touchdown. He was offside. Like, people were like, "Oh, he looks like he's barely on the line," with the football. You can't be parallel to the football when you line up for those. You have to be behind the line of scrimmage. And he was, if not slightly ahead, he was right on the line with the ball. Mecole Hardman, again, bonehead play. You go offside there when you could have, only let up 3 points instead of 7 there. He was offside, and it doesn't matter, as the great Vin Diesel said in Fast and the Furious, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. One of my favorite quotes. That's one of my favorite quotes.
If you're not first, you're last, Ricky Bobby.
That's right, buddy. And it doesn't matter if you were just barely offside. The rule is the rule.
Yeah.
He was offside. Kansas City will bounce back. I think they'll win at least another Super Bowl with Mahomes there. Overall dominant performance.
As bold to say Mahomes is winning 2 or 3 more.
I would agree.
If they can keep him surrounded by talent,
yeah,
he's going to win a couple. It's not going to be 1 or 2. Like I don't think he's going to be pressing Tom Brady. But you never know.
That's why we play the games.
He will win a couple more.
I want to ask you one last thing just on the Super Bowl and Brady and everybody talking about him being the GOAT and whatever. I personally don't think he's the greatest athlete of all time. I think that is a stretch in terms of a pure athleticism. Yep. I'm curious to know who you would throw in there. Like me personally, I'm thinking of people like even stretching into like the Olympics, like Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson come to mind. George St. Pierre came to my mind. I'm struggling to think of someone who would top Bo Jackson, because Bo Jackson was a dominant player in 2 extremely demanding in different ways sports. I don't know if you could toss me somebody else. Who would you who comes to mind when you think greatest athlete ever?
Well, Bo Jackson wasn't the only 2 sport.
No, he wasn't.
Barry Sanders, did he not play 2 sports as well? Who am I thinking? It's not Barry Sanders. Same era though, and he was also a running back.
Yeah,
it'll come to me. It'll come to me. Either that or I'll do a Google search.
Not Walter Payton.
No. I'll do some Google searching in a minute, but there was another one. Honestly, and people are going to say I'm biased. When I look at the greatest athlete, I have to consider the sport that's being played.
Yeah, for sure, of course.
While you can look at cyclists, swimmers, like you said, Phelps, and that's an individual scenario where you're relying on your individual athleticism to win. And team sports are a little more, team oriented. You have a supporting cast. But I truly believe that hockey is the most difficult game on the planet to excel in. I believe that it's the fastest game on earth. You are thinking the game at a pace not too many other games can be compared to. You can maybe compare a quarterback and the way they have to make reads and decisions on their first read, second read, compared to that of a hockey player. But I consider the sport. And if I'm going to pick the greatest athlete, they're a hockey player.
I have a hard time disagreeing with your logic. Yeah, it's a valid point.
Whether you want to say that's Sidney Crosby, Wayne Gretzky, Gordie Howe, Connor McDavid,
Lemieux.
The list goes on and on and on, going back to the greats of Jean Beliveau and Maurice Richard, like
Cyclone Taylor.
You could make a lot of arguments for a lot of people from different eras from the game of hockey.
Certainly.
But just given the nature of the sport, how unbelievably physical it is, how fast the game is, how fast you have to think the game to be part of the upper echelon that get to be fortunate enough to have an NHL career. I'm not going to pick one because that's a whole show in itself.
Oh, we listed a bunch there. You can debate amongst yourselves. But I agree.
I just not to take a cop out without saying an actual name, but the greatest athlete to ever play in North American sport is a hockey player.
I have to say this quickly before we move on to talking more hockey. I have to mention, and it's not even an honorable mention. She deserves to be on. She'd be on my Mount Rushmore. Like Serena Williams has got to be in there. I know it's an individual sport, but you're talking about athleticism and dominating within that realm of a certain type of athleticism. Like, I don't think we will ever see a tennis player like her again. I mean, she destroyed women's tennis for the better part of 15 years and is still a favorite to win tournaments sometimes. Like when she gets rocking and rolling, she is hard to beat, man. And of course, on the other side, you look at guys like Federer, Nadal, the Joker, but Serena Williams, in terms of being the very top athlete within that realm and dominating her competition, you'd be hard pressed to find an athlete in any sport that had that level of domination whilst also being the cream of the crop athletically.
I mean, you could make an argument from somebody from every sport, whether that's
of course
Messi, yes, Ronaldo, Beckham from soccer, whether that's A-Rod or Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle from baseball. Like there's somebody from the sport.
We won't include A-Rod in this conversation.
Yeah, well, you know what? Steroids aside.
Yeah. He was a good ball player. He's a good ball player.
If it wasn't for that black mark on his resume.
Yeah, he's also not the greatest dude. I'll say this. He's a pretty good analyst. I'll say that. A-Rod,
but yeah, there could be arguments made from somebody from every sport. And I just...
Isn't that the best part, Jason? Isn't that the best part of being a sports fan? Is conversations like this.
And I played baseball very competitively at a fairly high level. I played soccer my entire life at not as high a level. And I played hockey competitively. I played football competitively just from my own experience. I can't see how you could ever argue against a hockey player. Like you said, you see the logic. There's just,
of course,
so many things happening at once. You're trying to read the game while trying to make sure your head doesn't get knocked off, while going at 30 kilometers an hour on two tiny steel blades. It's not even an argument for me.
Yeah, so it's a special sport.
While we're gonna switch over to hockey,
really quick before we do that, Jason, I just have to mention one last football thing.
Oh, Marty.
And this is sad news. Marty Schottenheimer was a great coach. Like, players love this guy. Like, Marty Schottenheimer passing away, unfortunately, yesterday at the age of 77. Had a long battle, 4 years, I believe it was, or longer, actually. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2014. Extremely sad. Just an awful disease. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Marty passed away, and that's sad, obviously. The game of football will remember him. I don't like crapping on people in the industry, especially on a day like today. Somebody at the Washington Post has got to issue an apology here. Have
they not already?
I don't know if they've apologized. They changed the title, but their original story on Marty Schottenheimer passing away reads as follows. This is the headline. They've since changed it. Marty Schottenheimer, NFL coach whose teams wilted in the postseason, dies at 77. What? I'm a journalist. I work for a news organization. I'm not saying I'm Walter Cronkite. I would never write that headline. That is in such poor taste.
That also had to get past an editor.
Yes. Yes. There's so many fundamental errors here. And I'm not saying someone should be fired for it. Just an apology would be good. Like, that headline is in such poor taste. The man just died, and he died of a horrible degenerative disease. maybe not the best place to put a kick to his crotch in the headline of the story. Like,
of your
come on.
obituary notice of it. Like,
yeah,
I saw that.
Just
I saw
be
that
better.
earlier. Yeah,
Just be
I saw
better,
that earlier
guys.
today. You need to show a little bit of respect, and it's
The man died. Like, what are we doing?
It's a little disturbing that, not that it
Oh.
makes it any better or any worse, but the Washington Post is one of the most respected, one of the longest newspapers, media outlets that's been around
They're one of the big four.
in North American history. Like, they've covered so many world events and done a great job out of it.
Yeah.
The Washington Post was actually the very first newspaper to run a Dark Eyes story. So kudos to them.
So they're obviously awesome. No, and they are.
100% one of the top world stories that they ever covered.
Yeah, I know.
But no, it's frustrating to see that, and so much today of the media, and not to go back into this, especially after doing all the Bell Media layoff coverage.
Yeah.
So much of journalism today is creating engagement and saying like the shock jock type thing, having that shock jock headline, having that shock jock article. And one of Steve Simmons is famous for this, throwing out opinions that he maybe not even necessarily believes.
Oh, people do that. I know they do.
But it's simply to create engagement because there's going to be a reaction. And to me, that's kind of what I feel like the Washington Post did here with the late, great Marty's Schottenheimer's announcement was they
get clicks.
Used a man's death to create clickbait.
Yeah, and again, whatever your opinion is on whatever you perceive as cancel culture or whatever, I'm not wishing anything bad for the writer of the story or the editor, anything. No one needs to be fired, but an apology would be nice. And like, at least they changed the headline, but just, really think about this. Like, the man died, and it's compounded by the fact that he died of a really awful disease. Like, maybe
I agree. I don't want to see anybody lose their job.
No, but this isn't the time to do this.
I find it hard to believe that somebody could be so tone deaf that they didn't look at that and say, bad idea. So that's why I say it feels like it was clickbait. It feels like it was done to generate a response that it got, because now here, two nobodies on a podcast in Ontario are talking about the Washington Post.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's for the wrong reasons. And I'll just close by saying this. I've never believed in any press is good press. I don't think that that's true at all.
Not at all.
And we know that today more than most days, don't we?
Yeah.
And I'll just say this as well. Listen, kids out there, I'll do my best Don Cherry impression. Kids, and I'm not Bob McKenzie. I'm not Walter Cronkite or whatever. I'm just telling you that I was given very sound advice by my professors and my current boss and our friend Chris Clark as well, who's been on this show. Be right. Don't worry about being first. Make sure you're right. Make sure you're telling the facts correctly, and especially make sure you do this job in a classy and respectable way, because then, especially if you want to deal like I do and have gotten to on occasions with athletes and people in sports, they will be much more accepting of giving you their time if you don't do stuff like this.
Absolutely.
This is a very, very bad joke that did not need to be said. and a man died. Like, feel the room, be right, and be classy. Those are the three biggest things I can say to any aspiring journalists or sports media people out there that watch this show, and you should, because this show rocks. Just live by those three things, and above all, treat people well, because it'll go a long way when you're looking for that next job or that next opportunity, that next interview. If you treat people properly, I'm not saying you can't grill people and ask the tough questions. That's just expected in this world.
Yeah.
But if you're classy about it and you treat people fairly, they will be much more open and giving with their time, and you'll get better stories out of it rather than doing clickbaity stuff like this.
And that's exactly it, right? So my former show on a major network, I'm even reluctant to say now.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Represents.
Yeah.
But I was able to secure guests like Grant Fuhr.
He was spectacular that day.
Grant Fuhr, Doug Gilmore, Bernie Nichols, Ali Afridi, Brian Savage, Tessa Bonham. We've had Nick Kiprios, Carlo Koliakovo, Biz Nasty on this
Steve
show.
Dangle, Biz Nasty.
Steve Dangle. I sometimes am at a little bit, I still am humbled when I reach out to people and they say yes without a hesitation. Biz Nasty, you want me as the first guest? Yes. Carlo, can you come on the show? Yes. Hey, Dangle, love to have you on the show. Yes. Why?
And you know what?
Why? Because I've proven to treat people with respect. And
yes,
that should tell you all you need to know. When you're moving forward, take Ryan's advice. You're not always necessarily need to be first. And in today's sports media, in today's world and awareness of mental health, sometimes not saying the stupid thing just so you get a couple extra likes might make all the difference in somebody's world. So you know what? Maybe trust, instead of putting the bait out there and dragging somebody's name through the mud for a couple extra clicks, maybe try some kindness and some positivity, and you might be surprised how much further you go.
Absolutely. I mean, it wouldn't have killed them to just write Marty Schottenheimer, well-loved NFL coach, passes away at 77. How hard would that have been? Just don't do that stuff. And you mentioned all those guests and great people that we've gotten to talk to together and individually over the years, all those great people that we've interacted with, both on this platform and the other one where we started. I bet you the majority of them, if we asked them to come back, they probably would, because we were respectful. We were respectful of their opinions and their stances. We wanted good information from them. We got it, and we had a great time with them and tried to make them feel welcome. And that will get you further than tweeting out or putting out and publishing crappy headlines like this. So that, we can move on. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs, man. Boy, they're fun to watch.
You cannot dodge this any longer.
No, let's talk about Austin Matthews. This kid is a freak. You can't
dodge this any longer. And I'm just going to do a little
oh no.
Yeah. Plan the parade. I might as well go with the stereotype that all Leaf haters have. I've planned the parade. It's starting at my house in Barrie, and then we're going to creep down Yonge Street and go through Newmarket, Aurora, and end up down at Maple Leaf Square. Okay, I'm kidding. I haven't started planning the parade, but first place overall.
Boy, they're fun.
10-2-1.
Austin Matthews scored 8 straight games. Like the goal he scored against Vancouver the other night on the power play where he dangled everybody and went bar shelf, that was unbelievable. My poor boy, Braden Holtby. God, do I ever feel bad for him. I saw a funny tweet that was like, Braden Holtby went through all that trouble getting his turtles across the border for this. And I had to laugh in jest, but I feel so bad for my former Stanley Cup winner and beloved Capital. I feel so bad for the way Vancouver's playing in front of him, but my God. And the goal the other night too, that wicked wrister, that release, that Matthews special. man, oh man, is he scary. I'm confident in saying this, and I've watched Patrick Kane, I've watched Steve Stamkos, all these great other goal scorers. I'm confident in now saying that Austin Matthews is the second best goal scorer I've ever watched in terms of pure scoring talent in my lifetime. He is that good. Second.
And you're putting Ovi at number one, I'm going to assume?
If you don't put Alex Ovechkin as number one, it's like the Brady thing. Okay. I don't really know what you're talking about.
So I want to do this before we talk about how amazing they've been, what Wayne Simmons has meant to this lineup.
Oh, I feel bad for
Wayne
him.
Wayne Gretzky. Austin Matthews is a top what player in this league? Top 5, 10, 15? Austin Matthews,
now, I'd put him at top 3. I'd put him top 3 right now.
I got this the other day where they were talking. There was actually it was started with a conversation on social media around Patrick Laine, and
well, geez,
somebody was saying, can we all agree that Patrick Laine isn't even like in the top 10 in the NHL? And everybody was obviously in agreement for the most part. And then one clown hops on and says, yeah, I agree, but neither's Austin Matthews. So I couldn't help myself on this. I challenged the gentleman to tell me 10 players that were better than Austin Matthews. Did he give you a list?
Oh,
he came back at me.
Okay.
With I don't have it right in front of me, but he came back at me with a list that did not include Crosby or Ovechkin. It had Patrick Kane, Eichel, McKinnon, McDavid, Draisaitl.
McKinnon is arguable. I like right now I would have Matthews in the top 3, just edging out McKinnon, but if he's top 5 all day long, like we're splitting hairs here. Like if you want to put McDavid at the top, Draisaitl right there at 1B, and then you want to give me McDavid at 3, or pardon me, McKinnon at 3, I accept that most days. But then I watch Matthews score goals and I'm like, oh my God, look at this guy. Like there's an argument there at least for McKinnon. I don't know about anybody else you're about to mention.
I'm looking for it here. And
Eichel, like I love Jack Eichel. I think he's an unbelievably gifted hockey player. I don't think he's a notch below, maybe one notch, because I think he is that good, and if he was on a better team, things would look different. He's not as good as I want Matthews all day ahead of him.
Listen,
God, he's just a phenomenal player.
I'm not even going to be a homer here. I will give you McDavid.
Well, you have to give McDavid. Like
I will give you even as you know he's slowing down noticeably a little bit. Alex Ovechkin.
So I don't think. And this is from the biggest Ovechkin fan of all time. Right now, Ovechkin isn't a better overall player than Austin Matthews.
No.
He's still a better goal scorer, in my opinion. If you want to argue that, fine, but it's true.
I'm going off of my list.
Okay.
That I composed afterwards. I will, even though I don't think it's as cut and dry, I will give you McKinnon.
Yeah.
And I, again, another person who's starting to slow down a little bit, but I will still even argumentatively give you Crosby.
Yeah, Sid, I guess if I were to put it like this, if it was Game 7 tonight and the cup was on the line, I would still pick Sid.
Okay, so I've given you 4 names. There is nobody you are going to convince me on any kind of level that fits into that next slot other than Matthews. I can make arguments all day long against anybody you want to throw in there. You want to throw Draisaitl? Not a chance. Not a chance. Matthews' two-way game annihilates Draisaitl's. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, certainly offensively, like Draisaitl is just a very different player, and his playmaking ability is, I mean, as good as I've ever seen. But Matthews, like that goal scoring threat and that release are just
It's ridiculous. It's second to none.
it's unique. It's unique. It's we're talking about a Bure, an Ovechkin, a Stamkos, those guys that they have a release that's all their own. Brett Hull, like when he shoots a puck, it just looks different. It just looks different.
The one thing he is able to do at a high speed, at full bore, that and I will say this, that not even Ovechkin could do in his prime, is to change that angle ever so slightly with the slightest of moves, and it's so minimalistic that I think the average hockey fan doesn't even pick up on it. And that's not to say I'm some kind of, know all, but you watch Matthews and the way he's able to just so subtly give it a little pull and twist and completely change the angle without changing his footing, without changing his speed. He is able to do things with that puck at full speed and get his shot off from the most awkward looking of positions. And it just goes like a rocket, like he fired up a one-timer. It's that little difference that he has with obviously the precision and the quick release that he has, that he catches goalies flat-footed so often. So many times you see Matthews let that wrister go and a goalie doesn't even move. It's like he can shoot the puck from positions where it doesn't look like he can physically shoot the puck from.
Absolutely.
And that's why he catches goalies so flat-footed. That's why he's able to sneak it through defensemen's legs with more accuracy and precision than any other player that I can think of, truth be told.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's got a very unique release that's all his own. I'll say this though, in slight retort, and like I don't want to get into a pissing match with you over Ovechkin Matthews. Like he learned that from watching Ovi do it. Yeah, if you go back and you watch, and he still does it now. He did it again against Philly the other day. Well, he did. Ovi is the greatest of all time at changing the angle. Go back into his lexicon of goal scoring reels and just watch how many times that he comes through full tilt. Back when he used to skate like a rabid horse, like he used to skate with like full, like his whole body was bent over. He was a psychopath, and he would change the angle and put it right through a defenseman's legs and use him as a screen, bar down every single time. He's the greatest goal scorer of all time. But Matthews is right now in terms of scoring threat in the league. He is absolutely right on equal terms with him. I don't want to have a wrist shot come off of either of those guys' sticks. And again, like, the great thing about him is that really at the end of the day, whether you want to agree Ovechkin shots better, Matthews shots better, at the end of the day, the great news, especially for people like you who love the Leafs, is that the Leafs actually have a player at this level that's worth talking about. They have never had a player this good. I'm already ready to say this. He is the most talented Toronto Maple Leaf of all time. Talented, not most accomplished. Doug Gilmour had 123 points one year. Like that was, and that I don't think that record will ever be broken. It's so hard to get 100 is hard nowadays. 123, I don't know about that, but just in terms of pure talent and ability to change a game with one flick of the wrist, the Leafs have never had a player at this level at any single point of their history. Lots of great players: Keon, George D. Armstrong, Sundin, Gilmour. Lots of great players. Matthews he just hits different. He hits different. The thing about his shot, Dark Guy, that I'll finish on here, because there's lots of stuff to talk about with the team, Wayne Simmons, Thornton's coming back, Sandin, is he doesn't have to move his hands down the stick shaft to get any torque on his shot. And that is what makes his shot so deceptive. On top of the ability to just kind of slightly turn or open his hips one way or the other, be up here or down here with his stick and get a shot off's incredible. But the fact that he can be up here on the stick and do this and not have to move his hand down the shaft to get any more torque, that is incredible. And that is the one tool that he has that almost every other player in the league does not. And that's what makes his shot unique. I've watched enough of his goals now, and you have too, that I think that with those guys I mentioned, Bure, Hall, Mike Bossy, you want to throw him in there too, Ovi, Stamkos, and now Matthews. If you lined up just a black image of them blurred out and you just saw the body mass taking the shot, you'd be able to pick their shots out from everybody else. That's why those guys are upper echelon goal scorers. Now, I know Matthews isn't there in terms of totals yet, but he's at that level. And if you watched enough tape, you'd be able to pick his shot out, him taking it, if you didn't know it was him. And that is special. That's special stuff.
Well, yeah, he might not be up there in totals, but
he'll get there.
He's going to get there. I mean, if you look at the goal scoring leader since Matthew came into the NHL,
he leads in 5-on-5 goals.
Yeah, and it's almost not even like really that close.
I think he's 27 or 28 clear of Ovi.
Yeah.
I'm not super sure on the numbers. I apologize. But yeah, like 5-on-5,
yeah,
this guy is an assassin.
And you know what the great thing is? The one thing is he hasn't remained stagnant. He hasn't just rested on his laurels. Like, since he's come into the NHL, his one-timer has improved drastically.
Which was the one thing he needed to improve.
Absolutely. He is a legitimate threat now for that one-timer on the power play. Just like you see Ovi sat up for in his office his entire career. The one thing that makes Lane a valuable asset is that one-timer on the power play. But he's gotten better, and the play. Listen, Matthews was an underrated two-way center from the moment he came in the NHL. People who didn't watch the Leafs or didn't know Matthews a lot called him a one-dimensional player, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, because they just look at goal totals.
He was good defensively. And I don't want to put him, I don't want to say he was, Selke worthy the minute he came in the NHL, because he wasn't.
No.
But he's worked to improve. And somebody posed the question to me the other day, which award do I think he's going to win first? The Rocket Richard, the Hart, or the Selke? I believe it's going to be the Rocket Richard just because of his goal-scoring talent. But I do believe he will get recognized as an elite two-way forward and win that Selke before he gets the respect of a Hart trophy.
It's highly likely they need to start using him, and they have this year so far, using him more on the penalty kill in order to be able to get there.
Because he's made those improvements, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, he's not Patrice Bergeron or anything, but, like, he can get to that level. He can get to that level. This guy's an elite thinker, man.
The amount of times last night in that game that obviously had a much different feel, and we'll get into it quickly about Wayne Simmons and what his absence might mean to the Leafs. Mm-hmm. There was a much different feel in that game than the last 5 or 6. The Leafs were struggling. And, in years past, that might be one of those games where you don't hear Matthews' name a whole lot, except for a couple shots that good scoring chances he might generate. But the amount of times in that game last night, I heard, what a play by Matthews to get back and break up that play. What a smart play defensively to get his stick in that passing lane. Like, you don't have, you can be just an average fan and still notice this, how much his game is evolving. I agree. I got no problem, and that's saying a lot as a diehard Leaf fan, that he is the most talented player that has ever put on a Leafs uniform and might very well go down in history as the most talented player to ever put on a Leafs uniform. I'm just so ecstatic to see he hasn't become stagnant. Like, he is working to improve every area of his game, and it's showing game after game, year after year. I went out on a limb a few years back, and the Twitter sleuths of the world have never let me forget it. And I said, I 100% agree Connor McDavid is 1A. But for you people who don't realize that Matthews is 1B, it's time to start paying attention. And
I remember that.
Very justified in that today.
Yeah, he's just so dangerous. He's so much fun. I'm stoked for you and for so many people that I'm friends with that are Leaf fans that get somebody like that to enjoy, because it's not right that the Leafs have had to wait this long for a guy at that level. Like I said, they've had a lot of good players come through, even during those turbulent years in the 2000s. Like Phil Kessel was a lot of fun, and that's great. Morgan Riley's been awesome, but the Leafs are a franchise that deserves to have somebody like this to celebrate and watch every night. I've gotten to do it for an awful long time now with Ovi. It's only right that Leaf fans get somebody like this in their lineup for the next 15 years. He's just such a fun player, man. He will win a Rocket Richard. He will. I think he's going to win 2 or 3.
Oh, absolutely.
The only thing that concerns me are his hip issues and some of the injuries that he had earlier in his career.
Shoulder.
If he can avoid those, and the left shoulder, if he can avoid those to a large degree, especially entering 24, 25, 26, 27, there's no reason why he can't win 2 or 3 Rocket Richards. And, potentially, you score 50 plus goals and have a bunch of points, like you put yourself in Hart conversation every year too. Ovi's
Absolutely.
won a couple of them. Ovi's won 3 of them. Matthews could absolutely do that. This guy is so good.
While I realize, and I said he'll win a Selke first, while I realize that is also voted on by the Professional Hockey Writers Association, I feel like there's going to be a reluctance to vote for him from the PHWA, just because of the fact that he plays for Toronto and blah 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 blah.
You
and
can't let that affect it.
Some of the opinions of people that have the ability and the right to vote on these are just crazy.
Well, you want to talk about crazy award voting. We've seen it in every sport. I mean, I think back, I have friends that are diehard Calgary fans that still to this day, when the word Hart is mentioned, lose it. That Jerome McGinley didn't win the Hart Trophy in 2002 and Jose Theodore did. That was a joke.
Well,
I'm sorry, and you mentioned, the Selke, and I hope that people generally that have the prestige and privilege of voting on awards like this don't let that affect them. I personally, if I had an awards vote, I would vote with my heart, no pun intended. And I would publish my votes every year. And the one that sticks out the most to me was a few years ago when a guy in Tampa voted for Radko Gudas as his rookie of the year. Stuff like that can't happen. You have to be, even in a regional market covering a team, you have to be impartial when it comes to awards and vote properly. And if everyone does that, I am confident Matthews can win some serious silverware. And
that's a problem. See, I do not have a lot of faith in the system and how it works.
When stuff like that happens, how could you?
That's it, right? And just like the other day, a gentleman, I'm not going to call out his name just because we've done enough of
we
that.
Don't need to do that. Yeah.
He's an Edmonton journalist. And after 8 games was already anointing McDavid as the Hart Trophy winner. 8 games. And it's like, you know what? I get it. I'm a homer too. But as a podcaster, a hockey person, I have to try to look at things from a non-biased position. When you know this person has a vote on the NHL awards, and they're posting after 8 games that they've basically already made up their mind on who they're voting for, that takes all credibility away to the whole process. So I believe Matthews wins a Hart eventually. What I believe is a lot of those
can't he?
They're not going to come from Edmonton, Vancouver, or Montreal / Ottawa areas.
But that's the issue. That's the issue I have with things like awards voting.
Yeah.
I understand that like you're in a market and you're going to cover a market, but you have to be impartial when it comes to things like that. And even though you're in Montreal and you want to give your vote to, like, I don't know, Carey Price or whoever, like if you legitimately believe that, I guess fine, but you can't do it in instances where the discrepancy in things like stats and the eye test are so wildly the other way. Like in 2002, that was ridiculous that Jarome Iginla didn't win the Hart Trophy. Go back and look up their stats. Jose Theodore had a very good year that year. He did not deserve to win the Hart Trophy, but a bunch of guys in Montreal voted for him and didn't put Iginla on their ballot. Because they knew, because they take all the top 3 votes, right? And so that's how they compile
second place votes count.
So absolutely. And the Montreal guys knew if we don't include him at all on the ballot, he won't win it and our guy will win it. It's not your guy. You're a journalist, and yes, you cover a certain team, like in this instance, the Montreal Canadiens. It's not Jose Theodore. He doesn't work for you. You didn't sign him. You're not the GM. He's not your guy. You're voting on a very prestigious award. And to not, I'm sorry, everybody, please, after this podcast, go look at their stats back in 2002. Jarome Iginla was a freak. And it's a joke that I sound like my friends from Calgary. It's a joke he didn't win the Hart Trophy that year. And this stuff happens in sports. And not to steer it in this direction, but you see it with things like the voting people that I can't stand the most in sports, the professional baseball writers who won't put guys in the Hall of Fame because they were mean to them. Like, I'm sorry, I don't agree with any of his political stances at all, and I think he's a doofus. Curt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He is a Hall of Famer. I think it's a dangerous slope when we start going, oh, well, I'll only vote for my guys regionally, like we're talking about in hockey, or, I cover Montreal. Of course I have to vote for Jose Theodore, or to go, oh, well, I don't like that this guy likes Donald Trump, so I don't think that based off his incredible playing career that he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. If you want to talk to me on the Baseball Hall of Fame of guys like Bonds not getting in, I agree. Pete Rose, I agree. They tainted the history of the game. Curt Schilling never did anything illegal. He just ran his mouth off, and people don't like that he likes that doofus who isn't president anymore. That is not a reason to keep him out of a Hall of Fame. That's all I have to say.
Pete Rose is somebody I will argue for. Okay,
and I understand that.
He bet he was betting for his team to win.
I know.
He did not bet against his team and then go out and go 0 for 4. Like, he was betting for his team to win.
You're right. And I'll be honest, I could absolutely be convinced. And a part of me does feel like Pete probably should be in the Hall of Fame. He's an all-time hits leader.
This isn't the Chicago Black Sox where you had people throwing the game. And even if you look into that team, there are some guys that have been left out of the Hall of Fame that had like MVP runs in the playoffs, but they've been tainted because they were part of the team.
And that I agree with. Pete, it's a tough one, man. And I bet you if you asked 100 people, you could get like a split right down the middle, or even 60-40. That I've talked to numerous people, and I feel like half have said no, he shouldn't, and half have said yes, he should.
It's time to let it go. He was betting for his team to win. He was not trying to cheat the game of baseball. Yes.
Oh, I agree.
It's bad. Yeah, he was gambling on a game he was playing in, but he bet for his team to win.
He wasn't, but if my memory serves, and pardon me if I'm wrong here because I wasn't alive, but wasn't he betting on games after he retired and was managing the Reds?
Yes.
Because to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure it wasn't when he was playing. It was after he'd retired and was either the GM or the team executive and was betting.
My apologies. Yes. But
was that not right? Yeah.
But the bottom line is,
no, it's still your point.
He was betting on his team to win.
Yeah. And really and we've gone off track here from the awards thing, but it's the same conversation. This whole bias that writers can have, that control, and baseball, of course, has the veterans committee, but guys that have really strict regional biases and opinions can affect things, and fans can stand back and go, huh? You know, and I just feel like you can't, it's not, to my knowledge, Dark Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, which I admit I am a lot of the time. It's not called the Baseball Hall of Really, Really Nice People. I was under the impression that it was called the Baseball Hall of Fame for people who did incredible things within the sport of baseball. Because there are guys that are in the Hall of Fame now that weren't necessarily unbelievably great people. I'm wearing an Oakland A's hat. A lot of people weren't giant fans of Ricky Henderson, who the field is named after. He was a pretty arrogant guy. Could you imagine him not being in the Hall of Fame because he's a bit of a smug dude?
Well, and I just think I can remember back to when he did get in, that there was some backlash in the media. It wasn't all a feel-good story.
But, and fine. And with the guy we're talking about now that's topical, like Curt Schilling, and we can move on from this, you know, we're running out of time, but with a guy like Curt Schilling, it's not like you put him in and you constantly have to talk about him being in the Hall of Fame. Put him in and never talk about him again because he's a bit of a bad guy. Don't invite him to MLB alumni events. Fine. I wouldn't want him there either. He's a doofus. But he should be in the Hall of Fame for what he did as a player. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
I agree.
What else do you got?
Well, big matchup tomorrow. I think a lot of hockey pundits, experts are going to be pointing to this game as a very, very important pivotal game for two teams, both on the rise. One I think you can believe in, and one I don't think so. But Leafs versus Habs tomorrow. You got,
my God, it's going to be electric.
Oh, it's nice to see. And listen, it's nice to see both teams being good at the same time again, and starting to rebuild that rivalry.
And there's Dark Guy being unbiased and knowing what he's talking about. Not just going, oh, screw the Habs. This is fun, isn't it?
On the flip side of that, there's one team that I believe is going to sustain its upward trajectory, and there's one team that I think is about to hit the wall. Hopefully I'm not jinxing my Leafs for that game tomorrow, but Brian Burke, who as everybody saw today, was hired by the Pittsburgh Penguins to be a director of hockey operations. I think a lot of people are happy we're not going to have to listen to him on Sportsnet anymore on Hockey Night in Canada.
I like Berkey. I don't mind the guy. He's very opinionated.
He was one of the gentlemen that at the beginning of the year was claiming Montreal was the best team in the North, the most improved. They had the best defenseman. They believe he said Jeff Petrie was going to win the Norris Trophy. They have the best goaltending duo, according to Berkey. And listen, I'm not oblivious to some of the things that Bergevin has done. Josh Anderson is a guy I wanted in Toronto. So I'm not going to turn around and bash Montreal for bringing him in. It was a good pickup. Nick Suzuki, I absolutely love. And
so
have
good.
a little bit of a story about how he ended up being drafted by Vegas that I don't think a lot of people would believe. But the fact of the matter is this team is playing above their head right now. I hope they sustain it for as long as possible because I love the rivalry.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say it again. I do not think this team is as good as all the experts are saying. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think it's going to – the wheels are going to start falling off, and I think that starts with their second matchup against the Leafs tomorrow night.
I guess we'll see. I just think, from an outsider's perspective, not being a fan of either team, I think they're both really good. I agree that Montreal was the most improved team just on overall impact on the ice. I still love Carey Price. I still think they have a better defense core than the Leafs.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Jeff Petry's not winning the Norris Trophy.
Why not? Why not? Who's played better than him demonstrably so far this NHL season? Like, I don't know. I can't think of anybody that's played insanely better than Petry to not at least include him in the conversation.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to admit
even at a 56 game season, it's still a long season.
It's a long season, you're right. Ultimately, do I think he'll win it? Probably not. It's like any award. It's a hard trophy to win unless a bunch of guys leave another guy's name off the ballot. But
well, we know Montreal's good at that.
Well, yeah. I'll just say this. I think he absolutely is entrenched in the conversation right now. It's going to be a sick game tomorrow. I can't. Yeah, right now. Yeah, got to get that last barb in, eh? It's going to be a fun game. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Leafs take a big loss in losing Wayne Simmons for what they say a broken wrist. Prognosis right now is possibly 6 weeks. I've had a broken wrist multiple times, and I was back playing in 3-4. Obviously not at an NHL level. So let's hope that, that 6 week is being a little bit generous. But you saw in that game against Vancouver last night how much of an impact he's had on this team and how much of an impact his absence had last night. It was night and day the way that Leafs team played from a couple nights earlier with Wayne in the lineup.
And I'm hoping that it's different because I want to see a really good, fun, energetic Montreal battle. I'll just say it. I mean, like, they played like crap last night. That was their worst performance of the year by a landslide. And boy, Freddie Anderson looked pretty good, eh? We better trade him because he just can't handle the pressure of stopping pucks for Toronto. I know it's not a playoff game or anything, but Freddie's pretty damn good.
I was biting my tongue last night to not call people out specifically. I try to preach being good on social media. I try to preach respecting people, and I try to preach, mental health and everything like that. So it was killing me not to call some people out by name. So I just put a very generic tweet out about it.
I saw it, and that is why I'm addressing this.
The amount of people who just 2 quick weeks ago or a week ago for that matter, were like, Jack Campbell is the number one goalie in Toronto. Freddie Anderson's done. He's garbage. Trade him. Let's get rid of him now. Hand the reins over to Jack Campbell, even though, Jack Campbell's out and hurt right now.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. And I remember a lot of vocal people in my fan base that were saying the same thing about a man named Braden Holtby prior to 2018. And I would just like for anybody, I know they're two different goalies, but same type of thing. Choker, can't get it done, lets in bad goals at big times, can't get the Caps over the hump. I'd like you to just go on YouTube really quickly and watch a 10-second clip called The Save. And then Google the clip of him lifting a Stanley Cup, which I think Freddie can do as the goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well,
that's all I have to say.
I got to say, my favorite Braden Holtby memory is letting in a Game 2 double overtime winner to Kasperi Kapanen.
Oh, good for you. And then what happened?
Dark Guy was born.
That's right. That's right. So maybe even though my team lost that game, that's my second favorite Braden Holtby memory.
On that note, we're going to wrap it up here on the Smoke Show on the FHN Network. I hope you enjoyed the show. We do apologize for all of our rants, but you know what? If I don't do it here, I'm going to, yell to my Maple Leafs memorabilia in the basement. So at least you guys are listening.
It's what the show's for, brother.
Absolutely. Huge thank you to the FHN Network for having us on. Huge thank you to my co-host, Ryan Jury. Huge thank you to our producer behind the scenes, Matt. You're always there for us. We love having you, brother. Thank you so much. And last but not least, I'm actually going to do two more. Thank you to Dry County for the opening credits music. Amazing band. They got a new album coming out soon. If you like country rock, you got to check them out. They're basically AC/DC meets Alabama. They're like country rock.
That's an endorsement.
And last but not least, thank you to the fans. Everybody who tunes in, listens to the show, downloads it as a podcast. Be sure to follow us at The Smoke Show, FHN. Like and subscribe to us there over on YouTube and everything. And until next week, remember, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Fire.
Yeah, boys.